C4 as a principal scientist. I'm going to navigate your discussion today, which is going to be oriented towards how to transform forest risk situation into more resilient agricultural production. We will be looking at cases in a number of countries, especially Indonesia, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire, and particularly looking at three commodities. There are oil palm, coffee, and cocoa. So we will be having 5 speakers. So as soon as I call your name or mention your name, please take your seat here. The first speaker will be Beria Lemona. She's a scientist and theme leader on the climate change and energy, low carbon energy, low emission energy. Lei will be talking about the experience in Indonesia dealing with oil palm and cocoa production. The second speaker will be Juan Carlos Mendoza. He is with IFAD, who's been supervising a number of or supporting a number of projects in a number of countries on the topic. Juan Carlos is from Colombia, but he's based in Rome with IFAD. The third speaker will be Marcelo de Cunche. Marcelo is with C4 and he is coordinating a big, large coverage of project called FACT. He will explain what FACT is all about. But this is very much related to the EUDR policies. And our fourth speaker will be Juan Siamani from Cote d'Ivoire. And we'll be hearing about how the agricultural production system in Cote d'Ivoire and how it is going to be related to the EUDR scheme. And last but not least is Samuel Agiemang from Ghana. You take your seat, you have one. And Samuel is with the Red Plus. I think he is a Red Plus consultant, but working very closely with the Ghanaian government. I have a kind of guiding questions for your conversation, which will take about 10 minutes each. And my colleagues there will show a sign when you have 3 minutes remaining and 1 for conclusion for your session. The guiding question I have, and hopefully it will help us to discuss the issue on this topic, dealing with the forest EUDR and how forest deforestation and forest definition is implemented in these countries, whether or not the stakeholder there is in the same kind of understanding about forest and deforestation, because we are dealing with those who are working to use the land that can be potentially risky for conserving the existing forest. And second question will be around the resilience. Economic resilience might be one, but there must be another resilience issue related because this commodity is very much high economic values of commodity, be it as export commodity or product that goes to Europe or elsewhere. So how can we assess the impacts of this transformation to help increasing or enhancing the resilience of the community with regard to the changing climate? And last one would be related to inclusiveness. So whether or not your activities will be inclusive in terms of involving local farmers, small or big, the inclusivity here is not perhaps looking at them as producer, but also they have the opportunity to be part of the decision-making processes, both at subnational and national level. So without further ado, I would like to invite Lei to start with the work in Indonesia. I can sit it.
Yeah, maybe I can go down. Yes, thank you, Daniel, for introducing me. So as Daniel mentions that my presentations, it will share the lessons coming from Indonesia, how for ICRAF, with the support from IFAT, we facilitate the process from the farm to the landscape. We are in this case, our yes, our interventions is multi-tier, coming from the inputs and also facilitation at the local level, at the subnational level, to ensure that all the commitments at the national level can be fulfilled and also operational. So here, as you know, that there are many problems with a commodity at the country level, especially in Indonesia, and I believe in developing countries, coming from the stress from climate change. There are pest disease, aging plantations, as well as low productivity. On the other hand, there are also lack of incentive, as well as the ability to put the ecological indicator towards the productions of the exported based commodity. As I mentioned earlier in my first slide, that here Svital handles this issue with Svital is stands for Sustainable Farming for Tropical Asian Landscape. So it handles the issues of the commodity problems within three layers of intervention: at the farm level, at the landscape level, and the territorial or jurisdiction level, as well as the national and global level. As you can see here, that there are a couple of interventions that facilitated by Svital. It starts with the technical capacity building. It includes training for agroforestry, as well as the coaching the farmers. We are working on the landscape directly with the farmers, especially in developing what's so-called the learning plots. Here we are combining a couple of options for cacao agroforestry, including also supporting the farmers in developing business models. Yeah, business models here is only not only about the cacao, but also what type of agroforestry system that match with the cacao. Like for example, honeybees, as well as the arenga nira at the local level. Yeah, there are also a couple of fruit trees that somehow become they are commercialized with the higher prices that can add income to the farmers. At the capacity level, we work with Mars and Rainforest Alliance to put the cacao agroforestry modules within a Mars. Mars is the, as you know, this is a international cacao chocolate producer. In providing informations on how agroforestry are being one of the curriculum within their training center. And at that, the last one that I would like to highlight, that we are also working with the subnational government to develop what's so-called the sustainable roadmap for cacao development. Here we support the local government to ensure that there are mainstream of public finance in supporting the cacao agroforestry at the village level. Yeah, just put it quickly. What we do in the first thing is like conducting what's so-called the evidence-based survey. We are categorizing different types of landscape that somehow has similar characteristic as also problems in the case of the cacao sustainability. You can see that there are different color in that map. Yeah, so the purple zone are the more intensive cacao system, where mostly cacao farmers has been very advanced, but with very degraded soil health, which is different with the green and the gray zone. Yeah, the green zone is somehow nearest to the forest. Yeah, the problem are mostly lack of the capacity, as well as insecure tenureship, because somehow the farmers in that area, they are mostly located at the buffer zone of the protected area. While on the left one, the gray zone, those are farmers who really only practicing very less intensive, extensive cacao agroforestry. You can see that knowing and developing this typology, we can somehow targeting different interventions, yeah, with which is somehow contextualized to each different type of the landscape. So here are the examples, yeah. Knowing those different situations, we conduct this learning plots with somehow with the co-design as well as co-learning with the local community to ensure that there are different options that somehow match to their landscape and also socioeconomic condition. This is one of the example how we develop a different business model with the local community. This business model to ensure that we provide incentive for cacao agroforestry to sustain their agroforestry system. This is the roadmap that we developed together with the district government. So when we are developing the roadmap, we provide them with information such as the land cover change, the land suitability for cacao, as well as what will be the indicators that they will put into their document to ensure it becomes the conditions where they can allocate funding through the public financing and through the what's called the ecological fiscal transfer to the local community, especially the one that practicing agroforestry. These are the example. Yeah, I just make it very quickly. The ecological fiscal transfer as one of our financing instruments that we apply for the sustainable commodity at the district level, which somehow it can be also upscale into the province and also the national level. Yeah, I just give you provide you with quickly with this graph, so you can see that there are some additional increased budget, yeah, coming to the village with this especially for adoptions of agroforestry practices through the ecological fiscal transfer at the district level. Yeah, we also help them in developing the indicators for the funds allocation. So that's the story of the cacao in Indonesia. And then I just want to give just very quickly for the oil palm. So basically, in principle, the approach is almost similar. Yeah, coming from providing the learning plots of agroforestry at the landscape at the plot level, working with the government at the sub district level. However, the difference here. For the oil palm, Indonesia has produced what's so called the National Action Plan for the Sustainable Oil Palm. The issue is that this National Action Plan has never been really socialized as well as implemented and reconstructed at the subnational level. So within the Svital project, so we support the development of the subnational action plan, yeah, which become the basis for the local government to operationalize sets action plan at their district. So with this, we are happy that having this at the sub-district level, it's enabled the government, the subnational government, to gain what's so-called the incentive as part of the export levy of oil palm that has been allocated by the national level. Just quickly, this is the national action plan that we co-developed with the local government, and similar to the cacao case, when we support the development of this national subnational district action plan, we also supported them with some technical information such as all the mappings and also the characteristic of the socioeconomic of the local community. Yeah, this one of the feasibility study and then mapping that we provided. And there are also some capacity strengthening at the local level. And that's the cases. So some key messages. So we believe that when we support the farmers to adopt agroforestry as well as the ecological agroecological of the commodity, it requires strong technical support and correct or targeted service delivery system. And we need to create the enabling conditions not only the policy but also the incentives as well as the coordination. My last slide. Yeah, indeed, that we target strategic collaborations and communications, and to be sustainable, jurisdictional sustainability approach should align with the market, targets multiple commodities, and again, strong incentive at the subnational level up to the farmers level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee, for keeping the time. Let's give a round of applause. In one sentence, Lee, do you agree with me that your work is basically to be inclusive to the community in both level, at national as well as subnational level? Is that right?
Yeah, our work is inclusive at the various level. Yeah, at the for sure that particularly at the smallholder levels where we always involve the smallholders. When we develop the intervention, we consult with them, we co-design, and we learn together when we are creating such intervention, especially in this case about the agroforestry models. And at the end, we co-invest, meaning that not all the costs are being shouldered by the project, but
Okay.
it also collaborate with the local farmers to ensure that they also bear the cost. So
Mhm.
we make it as a different collective investment.
Thank you. I believe the audience will elaborate that. Feel free to sit
Okay.
in the front line, and we invite Juan Carlos to further comment and also give reflection about those things from the perspective of IFAD. Juan?
Thank you very much. And I think from the point of view of IFAD, landscape approaches are very critical to the type of more integrated approaches that we have. As for those of you who may know IFAD, I think over the last decade in particular, IFAD has been evolving from being focused particularly on agricultural production to a more holistic rural development institution. So let me just make a few comments regarding the questions we got on first, the importance of a landscape approach and how to ensure that communities that have the proper incentives to protect the forest, either because they incorporate it into their productive activities when we're talking about agroforestry, or also because we design mechanisms for them to be compensated for the work that they do in protecting forests that may be, for example, adjacent to their plots of land. And I think, particularly when maybe a very specific example, since we're in Brazil, is we have a program with support from the German government through its compensation initiative, whereby we, in the Brazilian Atlantic forest region, particularly in areas where there's quite a lot of Quilombo communities, Afro-Brazilian communities, we provide, depending on the case, either direct payments for conservation activities, or when we are in the process of smallholder farmers that are doing the transition to agroforestry, we also, in addition to that, provide supplies, provides payments during the transition, and accompany also with technical assistance the overall process. I think some of the numbers that I saw, and I'm not a scientist, but I play one on television, as they say. I noticed that when you go to agroforestry, the yields were stable. Yeah, the non-agroforestry was higher, but also what we see is that the yields, that is the revenue, may remain stable, but the cost may actually be lower than the ones that are using pesticides and more intensive agriculture. So if even if the income remains the same, but the cost is lower, it does lead to increased net revenues for these smallholder farmers. Then on issues of resilience. So let me start by talking about income or economic resilience. This is an indicator that we look at all the projects. This is, as a matter of fact, our member states, this is one of the things that we report is the amount of households whose economic resilience has increased thanks to our projects. And resilience, again, it can come from many ways, either because we help them diversify economic activities at the household level. So you may combine, particularly when they're doing cash crops like cocoa, we try to also, which is very much subject to international fluctuations of price, we try to combine our projects also with alternative economic activities, which could be home gardens that generate also a surplus of vegetables that can be sold in the market. But another way to have resilience, economic resilience, is, for example, to work with the farmers if they get, for example, microloans to make sure that these instruments have embedded mechanisms such as grace periods or temporary reduction or postponement of interest payments. For example, a year where the crops have been bad or the international prices have been low. There's other mechanisms that we work on. I mean, some of it actually, since it was mentioned that I'm Colombian, this is something that has been done in Colombia for some time, is to have stabilization prices of purchase. So basically, when the prices of coffee are very high, the amount that is paid to the farmer, it's a little below the market price, so that creates a cushion that then when the prices are very low, then they get paid above what the market price would be, precisely to try to insulate the small farmers from the fluctuations of global prices. And then finally, on inclusion, for us, inclusion is not a slogan, it's really a delivery model. IFAD has always worked on issues of farmers organization. I mean, we used to talk about farmers cooperative. Now we use a much broader term of trying to aggregate farmers, and particularly when we take a landscape approach where we see many farmers doing transitioning to agroforestry, we think that this is very important. Why? Because normally if you have farmers associations and you have key champions in a community that can demonstrate that this new mechanism of production leads to higher net incomes, it makes a big difference. People always say that farmers are very conservative. That's not true. What I think what farmers are, they operate in a highly risky business. And that's when doing it when entire groups do it, and when you have key champions that can show that things such as agroforestry, or that yes, payment for ecosystem services can be reliable. And that's something we work on how to organize these schemes so that this is not just a one-off, but that self-sustaining funds are created. If we have some champions in the community, it generally helps a lot on the transition, and it makes it a lot more inclusive. And again, I think maybe on inclusivity, the last point is, just like I mentioned, this program we have in Brazil for Afro-Brazilian communities. One thing that we always look at is who are the most vulnerable in the community, but also who are the farmers that have the highest potential to grow in productivity. Something that we're seeing in many countries, both in Africa, we see it in places Central America, is the increased feminization of agriculture. Basically because the men have left, and how we can work also with women to increase the productivity of even if they're small in their small plots. So this is also something that we work on very much in effect. So let me stop there and thank you again.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. You cover two important things that I was asking. One is the inclusiveness. The secondly is the resilient issue, especially the economic resilience when things happen, because it is a risky business, as you said. Can you say something about EUDR with regard to the export commodity from countries that you've been working? EUDR, yeah.
So on this is something that we generally the best approach that we have on this is we are working precisely with some of the big buyers such as Mars in some of the countries, because at the end of the day they have a vested interest on this on zero deforestation, first in meeting whatever the requirements are to export the products, but also they need to ensure that their farmers, that this continues to be a viable financial proposition for the farmers. So this is again, we for example, are starting to do some pilots also, thinking in terms of Latin America and Ecuador, of helping them the transition and how to financially compensated, particularly during that period of transition. But this is still, from our perspective, we need to also work with the off-taker or with the big trader, because I think this is a situation where everybody's interests are ultimately aligned to make sure that these products can be exported.
Thank you very much. Again, let's give a round of applause to Juan Carlos. Our next speaker is my colleague Marcelo, who is going to tell us about FACT, how it works in various countries in the context of a UDR. Maybe you can explain what FACT is all about, Marcelo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Murdiaso. Yes, so and thank you for the very interesting questions, and I'll adapt as they were formulated. So, starting with EUDR and the context of how it came about. So, based on scholarship, also on how consumption of commodities is linked to production elsewhere, and also to potential land use change, deforestation elsewhere, mostly in the global south, in so-called producer countries. There have been publications by Martin Persson, by Pendrew, 2019, 2020, that explained how this value chain is interconnected. And based on that, the policy process took it up to the extent possible, and also to address deforestation along the value chain, and particularly in so-called supply chains of commodities. So FACT dialogue, as my colleague moderation asked, is forest, agriculture, and commodity trade dialogue. It is a dialogue between so-called consumer countries and producer countries. So it is also about EUDR and trying to address this telecoupling challenge of consumption trade and then the production side, how to get it to be more climate resilient, more towards zero deforestation. So the slides that I prepared is towards zero deforestation and full inclusion, fostering mutually beneficial transparency and recognition across value chains, and to really focus on what has been elaborated to guide us here in this conversation is really how to get to inclusivity through mutual benefits along the actors in the value chain. So what I'd like to focus here is how to get to mutually beneficial transparency along value chains and also to mutual recognition of standards, and that also covers sustainability standards, which the FACT dialogue and the countries also worked on. So on the right-hand side, we have 10 case studies that we from the Secretariat of the FACT dialogue side supported countries, but they themselves identified as programs they would like to showcase. So in alphabetical order, from left to right, you have Brazil with Brazil's National Productive Forest Program, which even goes into restoration, and as also Daniel was asking for, in terms of community resilience, I think is one of the cases that can also cover that. And Peru has a similar program that they also presented within the FACT dialogue, which even has this name for Planting for Proof of Peru's Forestry Incentives Program. So it's very similar. Also, these two Latin American countries have this in common in terms of restoration, going beyond zero deforestation towards really enhancing community resilience, involving local actors in restoration programs. But going into more into the question of inclusivity, I'd just like to show here one of the products this year from the FACT dialogue, which is, it's not for us to read, but just to give an idea of what countries discussed in different online meetings and also in an in-person forum that we had in Southeast Asia. So there it's all about how to get to mutually beneficial transparency. So not only traceability for ticking compliance boxes, for example, of contemporary regulations, as mentioned before, but going beyond that and looking into how can smallholders, for example, benefit also from this transparency along value chains? How can they be visible? And one of the principles, it's not termed inclusivity, as was the guiding question, but it's smallholder inclusion. So it's really about enabling smallholders to have access to information, to access to data, and also reward mechanisms that then, for example, compensation, I think, is a good example in terms of rewarding smallholders also that go beyond what is asked for in terms of ticking boxes. So, and then capacity development of smallholders, of indigenous peoples, of local communities, then another principle for governments to really further strengthen and create an enabling environment for transparency and traceability, which is currently mostly dominated by big private sector actors who have their tools for traceability, but there's not much access to those. So equity and justice also in terms of how indigenous peoples, local communities can access not only the tools, but also what they want in terms of benefits and benefit sharing along the value chain. So these are our principles I would like to highlight here, trying to respond to the guiding question. And what is interesting is really that the countries, the member countries, which are in total 28 from the FACT dialogue, the main exporters and importers of commodities, they have endorsed these principles. And so these are entry points for working further, and an example how uptake can take place in the policy space as well. So last slide. The key messages is really about the role of governments to exchange and through an open dialogue, which also happens. In fact, it's not a negotiating space, it's open, it's trusted, and between producer and consumer countries to get to mutual benefits. And also in this process, for example, there's one working group working on trade and markets, and there we have come with information brief that was just published on how national assurance systems can be recognized at the international level. For example, ISPO, MSPO, so that really mutual recognition happens. Inclusive traceability, digital public infrastructure is important. And then also the benefit sharing along the value chain, so that the smallholders, indigenous peoples, and local communities can also profit from that. And as I see my time is up, yeah, I thank you very much. And if you'd like to learn further about the FACT dialogue, here are some publications. There's a QR code. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcelo. I think you've been covering 3 guiding questions very nicely. But out of my curiosity, this is perhaps a bit personal, if you don't mind. There's been a kind of strong divide in the past, like the term like South, North, developed, developing, you know, third world, etc. And then you introduce the term here like consumer and producer. How is it happening in your dialogue when you present this kind of setting in the context of, you know, the stakeholders and government at national or subnational level in those 2 divided countries?
Big question. Yes, I think because it's not a space where you have, for example, the highest level of government negotiating with each other in this pure diplomacy space, and where, you know, often power plays a big role. Because it's not this formal space, it's more a dialogue that came from COP26, from Glasgow, in the spirit of really, if we want to address deforestation effectively and really bring together the different actors that are important for that, we need to have in one space, in a trusted space. And online meetings even happen Chatham House sometimes, so that they really openly exchange, and so there the representatives are at the more technical level get to exchange and get to, for example, the products are on mutually beneficial transparency, on mutual recognition of national assurance schemes. There, this dialogue can happen, and then really looking not only into the consumer side, where there are other platforms for that, the EU focused, for example, but also bringing together the producer side and listening to what the context tells and realities are really about.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcelo. Can we have next speaker? I think it's Amani, who is going to tell us the story from Côte d'Ivoire, especially in the agronomy aspect of commodities in the countries. Amani.
Thank you for the space. So it's happened that we separate mitigation and adaptation. And the experience that we have, it appears that building doing mitigation, protecting forest is unlocked by developing resilience of the community first. And that's what happened in Cote d'Ivoire, where we work on a specific mechanism to unlock resilience building in the cocoa sector so that forests can be protected. Why? My presentation is around 5 key points. And what we should know is that cocoa in Cote d'Ivoire is the backbone of the livelihood of 1 million, at least, households. Education, health, most of the livelihood, everything is around cocoa. And you know, cocoa is very sensitive to drought and to heat. So for this household, any shock of heat or drought, it's a crisis, a livelihood crisis. And what happened, and what is common is that when the productivity of cocoa is declining, the step forward has been so far going into further forest to slash new forest. And the result has been widespread deforestation. At least 75% of our cocoa, our forest in Cote d'Ivoire disappeared under the pressure of cocoa production. So in this context, protecting forests, the key is building farmer resilience so that they can stay on their land, not to go further into the new forest and slash it down. But although we have, and I say we have, research has provided us with key important technologies for improving farmer resilience, it was not always, it has not been so possible always because of some limitation in terms of finance. You know, adaptation so far has come across like public good, humanitarian action. And it's so heavily reliant on public finance. In this way, building resilience for those 1 million households, obviously, it's really limited. Public finance is limited. The issue is that even though the private sector, which is heavily involved in the cocoa sector, I mean the chocolate industry, sees the interest in regenerating or making productive productivity better in cocoa sector, they see risky to invest in resilience. So that's why this pilot project was initiated in collaboration with the African Development Bank to de-risk investing in cocoa resilience so that the private sector can buy in. So we piloted the Adaptation Benefit Mechanism so that it can be operationalized for the cocoa sector in Cote d'Ivoire. And first, what is ABM? Quickly, it's the result-based payment system for adaptation. Think of it as the CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, under the Kyoto Protocol. Now it can move to the Article 6.2, 6.4, and its variant. So currently it's registered under the Paris Agreement. It has been registered as the first non-market approach for adaptation. It quantifies adaptation benefits, certifies it, and enable investors to pay after results are verified and certified. although it's similar to carbon market, it's not a market approach. It's a non-market approach. But ABM requires a methodology to be built so that it can be operational. So we did it. C4A prepared the first ABM methodology for cocoa agroforestry in Cote d'Ivoire. Think of it of something like that with a, I don't know, I'm trying to show. Okay, we can see it on the screen. So for what, think of a methodology, ABM methodology is a comparison between the project scenario and the situation where the project is not implemented. For the cocoa sector, the project scenario is agroforestry, and no project scenario is monoculture or slightly intercropping, but with low shaded tree. And the difference between both generates what we call a certified adaptation benefit. It can be economic, social, environmental, and those are certified based on MRV operations. And after that, it can be sold. What you call, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit. Sorry, how can I go back? Can you help me? Yes. This one? Yes. Okay, yeah. So now, the certified adaptation benefit can be sold. So the outcome, what we say, when we sell it, generates additional resource so that the project can be replicated. So one certified adaptation benefit in the cocoa agroforestry is at least equivalent of 55% of reduction of cocoa mortality, no cocoa farm, no deforestation because it works. The methodology oblige its application only on old cocoa farms, so no new cocoa, no new land is cleared, and productivity is enhanced for at least 25 more years because ordinarily the cocoa farms live around 19 to 30 years, and after that the cocoa farm dies and people leave and they go beyond to look for another forest. What we learned is that first, before going into resilience can be measured in this framework because people have seen resilience as something more conceptual, but it can be measured in this framework. ABM provides us a powerful lever for deforestation-free cocoa as it stabilizes land use. First, it builds farmer resilience, so they don't need to go further to declare new forest. It has a high potential to operate at scale. So far, the projects are fragmented. After one project, we look for new funding that sometimes doesn't come. But this way, when we have a project, it provides the necessary funding to replicate itself. So it works like we need public finance to de-risk the private sector finance so that the private sector can roll out the adaptation measures. So that's how ABM works. Our experience with that, it can be replicated in other sectors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's gone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mani. You can take your seat back, and I'm sure audience will ask more about the approach that you did, which is the adaptation measures through agroforestry practices. Without further ado, I would like to invite Samuel to explain more about the neighboring country situation in Ghana, how it is particularly related to, I believe, RED Plus mechanism, if I'm not mistaken. So, Samuel.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It's our joy to share on this important platform a perspective from Ghana. looking at the topic, I think it's very timely that we are having this conversation that seeks to secure deforestation-free landscape. So it is very timely to have this topic put together. Well, let me start from the component on resilience. Yeah. So linked to economic growth. So in Ghana, is it better now? Is it better? Okay. So in Ghana, there's a clear policy direction where proponents are promoting or championing large-scale adoption of agroforestry systems. And this has been widely adopted by farmers, even as all stakeholders are on board to ensure that agroforestry thrives in Ghana. And if you look at even from IPCC, the data shows that nature-based solutions, agroforestry, nature-based solutions have about 30% role to play in terms of regulating or achieving the Paris Agreement. And so it is proper that even in country, systems and policies are aligned with international regulations that seeks to promote tree planting to address climate change. So there's clear policy direction in terms of implementing agroforestry in Ghana. And it helps to build the needed resilience on farms so that farmers have been able to increase production. And once farmers increase production, it also inures to their benefit in terms of economic benefit as well. There is component of diversification. In Ghana, one key institution responsible for cocoa has to do with the Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board engage farmers on cocoa intensification, climate smart agriculture, and they also engage farmers on farmer business school, which is to say that farmers seeing cocoa as a business. So they receive the training on how to diversify. They receive training on how to make sure that your simple mathematics, profit and loss comes in so that you know how much you're supposed to put into your cocoa production and how much you will get. So right from the onset, farmers have that perspective behind their mind that these are the input, these are the resources I'm supposed to put in there that would help me to get to this margin of profits. And so all of these structures are being put in place to ensure that farmers are well placed to maximize their production, which also impact on their economic gains as well. There is a component on village and savings loans association at the community level where the smallholder farmers are engaged and given capacity on how to put resources together, the proceeds they make from the cocoa production, putting them into loans, putting them into savings that they can draw among themselves so that they're able to really have less of the shocks that climate change presents. So these systems are also available for farmers to put themselves into so that they are able to really have access to finance by themselves without relying upon external parties, but looking within what they can also do to invest that also contribute to their economy as well. I think Joan talked about the living income differential, which I also agree to, that when farmers understand that they get extra income or extra proceeds beside the selling of the cocoa produce, they have greater interest in preservation, sustainability. So the premiums that they get from certification programs also go to motivate them and incentivize them to really keep up with practices that are geared towards sustainability. And so these are some of the systems in country. Farmers are encouraged to do so. Of course, let me also place on record one most important activity that places policy into perspective has to do with the REPLAS implementation in Ghana. REPLAS leverages science and data in engaging farmers that between 18 to 20 trees they're supposed to per hectare, they're supposed to plant them, and all stakeholders come on board ensuring that these policy perspectives are really carried out through not just by government, not just by government, but also the private sector playing key role, NGOs and the likes, all coming on board to ensure that systems work in Ghana when relating to improving the economic situations of the farmers. I'd like to also add that in other jurisdictions also, they are thriving to secure deforestation-free landscape and then place it as a label on the product they churn out. Other landscapes or jurisdictions are able to produce deforestation-free chocolates, and that comes with extra income. So these are some of the things that we can do even as we aim at having deforestation-free future. A shared vision that would promote farmers to get extra income, even as we adopt these sustainable practices in our various countries. Now, let me shift focus to the EUDR. I think this is a very important topic, and in country, Cocoa Board is internalizing it very well, mapping all farms. Cocoa Board is rolling out what we refer to as the cocoa management systems. So the cocoa management system, through that, farmers have been, Cocoa Board has been able to map out all the farmers in the cocoa areas, and that helps us to know where exactly cocoa is sourced from. And through partnership with Forestry Commission, they've also developed forest risk assessments and developed they've carried out forest risk assessments and developed forest risk maps to point exactly where the issues are. So having these available data, then it targets implementation as to where to engage farmers, as to what to do to change the narratives, to change the business as usual approaches that farmers adopt that impact negatively on our forest resources. There are two goals to achieve here: higher production, at the same time achieving the integrity of our forests. And this is what has been the system that we are doing in country to ensure that we achieve these two important aspects of our economy, that is the cocoa and the forest as well. Then I'm reminded that I have just 1 minute, but I have one more topic to cover, which is the inclusion aspect. The inclusion is very important. There's a saying that those who are closer to where the forests are, where the resources are, including them, they are able to help protect the resources better. What do we do in country? In Ghana, where I come from, there's a clear governance model that has been adopted by the government, by civil society organizations, by local communities in ensuring that there's a shared vision of sustainability. There's a shared vision of what we can do to secure our future, to do what we can do to secure deforestation-free landscape. And that is the HIA governance arrangement, where almost every community have been engaged, sensitized, given capacities on the things that will help us to achieve that shared vision, and having a model of governance structures that integrate the perspective and the input of local communities, not just about there being a mere passive actors, but seen as co-actors, an important segment of society that can help us drive sustainability agenda to where we want it to be. And so there's a clear systems in there, referred to as the HIA governance arrangement, where communities are engaged, given capacities to share their perspective around sustainability, which also borders on, for example, the premiums they get. Maybe here I should pause and say that the current certification schemes do not reward extra effort that farmers put in. For example, enhanced gender, enhanced governance arrangement. It will be my proposal on this platform that we can have certification schemes reviewed to integrate these systems where farmers do extra work in terms of ensuring gender perspectives, in ensuring there's a clear governance arrangement that promotes sustainability, that promotes sustainable agricultural value chains. We can integrate this so that farmers get extra benefits so they can keep up with protecting the forest resources that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Samuel. I think you underlined very clearly about the access to finance, and RED Plus can be one of those catalysts to be able to connect within the activities of avoiding deforestation as well as improving the productivity. The host has kindly added the time for us to have discussion. So I would like to invite all the speakers to take their seat in front here. And you can ask amongst yourself, but also I think the audience would like also ask questions. I give the opportunity for the audience first, and then perhaps you can, sharpen your ideas among yourself as speakers. Any questions from the audience? Go ahead. Identify your name and association.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the presentations. It was very interesting. I have a question to Sorry, my bad. Yes, I'm Johannes Svensson. I'm from the Basque Center for Climate Change, working on the governance of forest transitions. My question specifically is to I'm Amani, Mr. Amani. I wanted to understand this, the adaptation-based, result-based payment, basically. What I didn't fully capture, and it may be my omission, is on what metric is, because I mean, that's one big negotiation point here, right? Like the global, the adaptation indicators, the global goal on adaptation, because adaptation is much harder than mitigation to measure. So, on what metric are you basing this this policy? Thank you very much.
Very good questions. I think that's the main issue. Amani, would you like to respond on
Okay.
that?
Adaptation, it's not like mitigation. There is no one metric for all. So it's context specific. For cocoa, for instance, when farmer, after vulnerability analysis, we come up with the adaptation issues. So if you have 10 different adaptation problems, this hints that you have maybe 10 different indicators because you have to cover them. For instance, they mentioned cocoa mortality, which is a big problem in the vulnerability. So as long as you get to reduce the cocoa mortality or increase the cocoa survival, you are in on one dimension. So the other dimensions, if they are, you should cover them. So the adaptation mechanism is built to work like that. That's why we don't have a unique unit, but we talk about impact or outcome. We are on impact or outcome level. So each outcome become one dimension of your resilience. So we can go maybe further, the technical things about adaptation benefits. There are materials online. Maybe I came with some of them we can share with you.
Thank you. Thank you
Hope
very much,
it's helped.
Amani. Lei, would you like to add on that context of aging plantation or pest and disease, which can be part of the adaptation measures that you impose or try to work with the farmers? Maybe we have perspective from Indonesia on that.
Yeah, I would say that in Indonesia, there are a couple of national initiatives to tackle the problems of aging as well as commodity problems, yeah, including this pest and disease and aging commodity. For example, in Indonesia, there are a regenerative agriculture but mostly it's for oil palm. Yeah, the problem is that there are lack of a limited initiative at the national level currently targeting other commodity beyond oil palm. Yeah, this is something also concerning because somehow where we are talking about diversifications of income, not only at the local level but at the national level, dependency of country in a single commodity that is now being hyped is very vulnerable. Yeah, so in this case, that we need to increase the resilience of the country by putting more attentions to other commodity beyond oil palm, which is cacao, coffee, rubber, again, a timber that somehow are being ignored because of high demand of the certain single commodity, which this is also becoming a very again, I put the vulnerability dimensions at the subnational and also the local level, because without any support from the national level, we kind of seeing a very rapid changing the landscape, yeah, by dominating of the single commodity, and even coming to agroforestry system of the different various commodity, even diversifying commercially important commodity become very limited. Yeah, so that's something I guess we need also to tackle, to handle together, like how to revive these different commodities starting from the national international demands. Yeah, EUDR is one of them, but again, how to translate that those global commitments to different layers of the governance, yeah, to ensure that they are operationalized at the local or community level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. Samuel, you want to add?
Okay, so thank you. So clearly, I'm aligning to what the doctor just shared with us. So in Ghana as well, we are not just focusing on cocoa anymore. There's a clear there's a clear will from government that has been demonstrated on the grounds. So now government has an institution that have been put in place. That is the True Crop Authority. So now the True Crop Authority has a mandate beyond cocoa. So now they are also focusing on coffee, focusing on oil palm, shea, and other tree crops that should be harnessed to diversify our income streams. So that not just about only cocoa that we can also focus on. And I think it's really a good thing that we focus on, because if you focus on one just commodity, whereas there are other plethora of other commodities that can get you income, then you're not building the resilience that is required. And there again also, at the farm level or at the landscape level, there's seriousness attached to livelihood supports, additional livelihoods that is geared towards helping farmers to be on their feet. And there are seasons where we refer to as lean cocoa season or lean season, where farmers are not able to get substantial amount of resources or income because there is no cocoa or there's no need commodity. So during that gap, there is that intervention, that intentional effort of providing additional livelihood to farmers so they can fall on within that gap, so that they are able to also make ends meet from those interventions that they engage themselves in. They engage themselves in, for example, fish farming. They engage themselves in mushroom farming. They engage themselves in other poultry, so that they're able to get extra income. And I think it's something that we can scale up, ensure that farmers are really protected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. We have 3 more minutes to go. And if you would like to ask questions related to facts, dialogue, and things like that, feel free to do that. But yeah, you're the next.
Hello, I think my name is Juliana Luiz. I'm a research manager at Choices Institute, which is a Brazilian think tank. I think my question can resonate to everyone and probably fact dialogue as well. But we have here, I want to hear a little bit more about, because we heard about the UDR, right? And to hear some thoughts on the role played by bilateral commercial negotiations. I'm saying that because on my work, we have a focus on soybean sector and soybean production, and we are connected, highly dependent on China on this imports and exports. I'm sorry. So it resonates in what you're saying, and we know that there is a room for bilateral commercial improvement. However, this could change. This could become non-trade barriers. So my thought is, China can also buy elsewhere. It's soybean. So how can, in the different perspective, how you see the perspective from bilateral commercial negotiations to improve crop diversification and other measures to avoid this trap and also improve by the bilateral side? I'm sorry for.
Marcelo, you are challenged to respond on this. Go ahead.
Yes, in principle, to contextualize a little bit, I would start saying that probably moving from unilateral to bilateral and then multilateral, in my sense, is every step is more inclusive. not only in terms of countries, but also in terms of different realities that are included in the agreements. So I think bilateral is also very important in addition to unilateral measures in terms of really considering both sides, both interests, and also local and national realities. So.
Okay, thank you, Marcelo. As Juan, you have any comment on that?
No, actually, I was going to make a comment on something a little bit different, in part because IFAD doesn't get necessarily in these sectors, but since there was a lot of talk of adaptation and making also the financial case for it, this is something that we've been working on. I invite you to look on the IFAD website. We just released a report on the investment case for adaptation and the triple dividend that adaptation provides. The first type of dividend is avoidance of losses, and I think this is what we normally associate adaptation with. And the other two, and I'm told I have no more time, is increases in income for farmers and also social and environmental co-benefits.
Thank you very much, all the speakers and generosity of the host. I do not want to conclude, but certainly we learn a lot of lessons here from various countries. So thank you very much, and let's give a round of applause to all the speakers and participants. Bye.
Shall we take picture?
Yeah, yeah.